What's happening, everybody? And welcome back to another episode of Park Lane Podcast, episode number 96. We are edging ever so closer to episode 100. Does that mean anything? Probably not, but it is interesting for us all. Anyway, as always, joined by two very good co-hosts, and I'll start with you, Mr. Winnie. How are you?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. A lot to dissect, so it's going to be quite an interesting show. But yeah, I'm good. I'm just the roller coaster that is Tottenham Hotspur, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And Wes, back again. Not sick this time. How are you?
Yeah, feeling a little bit better. I was properly rough last week, hence why I didn't make it. But yeah, it's nice to see you've nicked my shirt as well, Luke, because that's looking a bit tight on you, mate. But no, all good, all good. And yeah, looking forward to another show.
Yeah, this is what happens, mate, when you buy a what do they call it, like player edition shirt from a famous store that we won't discuss on this channel, and it comes, when it comes tight. I'm in the shape of my life. That's all I'm going to tell myself anyway.
Bet the missus loves you.
Yeah. Exactly. But look, if you are new to the channel or you've never been here before, make sure you click on the subscribe button and making sure you're liking the video. It is free to do so, and we really do appreciate it. We have just hit over 1,000 subscribers, so thank you all very much for doing so. But we need to keep pushing. So do all that good stuff. And if you're listening on any podcast platform, give us a review and also click the follow button if it's on Spotify. Right, lads, we're going to wait a minute before we start talking about today's game because, there's a lot to talk about. So what we're going to start talking about today is the Europa League draw. Now, nobody asked me what the rules are for the Europa League because I have absolutely no idea what's going on, right? Unless you want to explain it, Wes, because I have no idea. I just know we just play a few teams and then see what happens.
Yeah, so my understanding is we play 2 teams from each pot. The top 8 then go through automatically. Then I think it's 9 down to 32. Then have like a 2-legged playoff, and then we go from there. So I think there's a few differences and a few tweaks, but nothing major. Obviously the different format, of course, it's a league format as opposed to different groups, but you'll still have like the round of 32, round of 16, and stuff like that. So yeah, it was
the top 8 out of all of the teams, so depending on how many points you gain.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Within your league, within your league fixtures, basically. So we've obviously got 8 games. If we get as many points as we can, just rack up the points and try and secure top 8. That's all we need to do, really.
Right. I think it's brilliant. I'm not gonna lie. I think the format is like quite refreshing. It's obviously they've done it for the Champions League as well, haven't they? I quite like the thought of it. I'm gonna be honest. Like, do you know what I mean? Because it can get a bit mundane. Like when you go into game week 4 of your Champions League or your Europa League group, and it's like, okay, we've got this team again, and we're already top of the group on, let's say, like 6-7 points, something like that. It's like, well, okay, but this, like, you need every point. You need to fight for every single point. So I think it's quite interesting.
Yeah, it's it takes a while to get your head around, but I think as you say, win as many games as you can, and it makes it a little bit more interesting as well because we'll go through some of the games. But if we look at the Champions League, I believe Liverpool have got to play Real Madrid early on, so you get the big games games. Yeah, you get big games early doors. Let's chat to some of you quickly in the chat. Jay earlier as always said thoughts on the new Spurs third kit. Do you like it, or do you prefer the away kit or the home kit? Do you know what? I'm just going to go off on one. Lads, which one do you prefer, home, away, or third kit?
I like the one that you've got on, mate.
Thanks, mate.
Home kit for me. I'm a bit undecided on the away and the third ones, I have to say. So home for me.
Do you know what? I need to say that because we were chatting. So I'm not really sticking to my script, but the other day me and Wes were talking because, let you on a spoiler, we were looking at like some Park Lane Podcast football shirts and designing and all the rest of it. And I designed some. I sent them some to Winnie the other week, and then I sent them to Wes a few days ago, and Wes didn't like any of them because he likes plain white football shirt.
You know where you stand with a plain white top.
Yeah,
that is true.
I like this one I do really like the third kit as well. Like I never buy the white ones. I only ever get these ones. So
you see the third one. The third one is horrendous. If you ask me, the third one is we're talking like wow.
Sackable offence for someone at night. Is that what you're saying, Winnie?
100%. Yeah.
And Jay said, for my birthday, I've asked for either the away kit or the third kit. Don't know which one. So yeah, let's see. Johnny, to be fair, it's the funniest thing you've ever said. He said, "Hello to the panel, Winnie, but you're not really, are you? More like Lucy." So
original. I've never heard that before, Johnny. Tell you.
And Yvette McGrath, thank you for your like on Facebook as well. Big up Wes's mum, I assume.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, your mum comes in different like names on here, so I've got to try and figure it out.
Silent Assassin's got more accounts than a bank, I think.
Yeah, she's going for the away kit, so thanks for
that.
Yeah. Right, let's get cracking and talk about the Europa League draw. So, one of the things I liked, Wes, was that the fact that our travel isn't too bad. So, for example, like the first game is at home to Karabakh. Now, if I'm correct, that's in like Azerbaijan, right? So
yeah, I believe so.
Azerbaijan's about an 8-hour flight from here, or 7-hour flight. So to go to Azerbaijan and back would be an absolute nightmare. So what's good about this competition is that we only have to play them once, and that's at home.
Yeah, no, I think I looked at our fixtures and obviously trying to explain the format to various different people. I think our home fixtures, I think we should be able to take care of business in. But I genuinely think our home form in Europe isn't too bad anyway. The thing that is a little bit of a slight cause for concern is our away fixtures, because there are some tricky assignments in there. And then you add into the fact that our away form in Europe is absolutely horrendous as well. So, you got the likes of Galatasaray away. The trip to Turkey is never easy. Sort of like the atmosphere that the Turkish teams can generate, especially at home, it can be really, really hostile. So, yeah, I think our away fixtures there might be some sort of banana skins in there potentially for us. But I think our home fixtures are very favourable. So, yeah, I'm hoping we do the business at home.
Yeah, definitely. Let's go through the fixtures, because we've got Karabag at home, Ferencvaros away, AZ Alkmaar at home, Galatasaray away, Roma at home, Rangers away, Hoffenheim at home, and Elfsborg at home. Now, if we look at those away fixtures, Winnie, we've got a trip to Budapest, which is only, 3 hours away. In terms of if we look at just travel in itself. I went to Celtic against Ferencvaros a few years ago because it was about like a 2:30 in the afternoon game for some reason. So I went to that and they were pretty poor, to be fair. And so I don't really see too much of a problem. Galatasaray away and Roma at home are probably the most tricky out of all of it. But again, even if you go to Turkey, it's a 3.5-hour flight. So it's, in terms of fixtures, it's been relatively good in our favour, right? And then obviously we've got Rangers away, which is near me.
It is near you. To be fair, the fixtures, like you say, I was disappointed because I fancied myself for an away trip and I fancied like a really nice one. And obviously, I've talked internally, with you guys or, with you particularly, Luke, about going to maybe try and travel to Budapest or something like that. But in terms of Tottenham, the trips are okay. They're not too bad. There's no like horrendous ones out there, as you say. And in terms of in terms of opponent, though, we should win at Ibrox, but this is Tottenham. Like we've seen Tottenham before crumble under pressure of crowds and stuff like that. At St James's Park, as an example.
Oh my God, though, Winnie! If you watch the Old Firm today, we'll batter Rangers, man. They're so.
I would like to think so. But again, I just fear because they can generate some noise there. I just fear that if the crowd gets on top of our players, they may crumble. But who knows? But yeah, in terms of a draw, my best bet, it wasn't even the Europa League draw, it was the Champions League draw, and they pulled Ronaldo out to press that button. It's like he was on a fucking game show. They pulled the team out of the hat, and Ronaldo had to just stand there and go, trying to win £1 million or something. It was crazy. I don't understand the draw. It's just mental. But you know what? I quite like the new format, like I say. But in terms of Spurs, I think we've been okay. There's some good ties in there, like Roma at home. That's going to be a great fixture. Yeah. And, like Rangers away, like we're just talking. And little ones chucked in there like AZ Alkmaar, Hoffenheim away, Elfsborg at home, stuff like that. There's some ties that I haven't seen Tottenham play before, because it's, when you get into Europe, typically in Champions League, you find yourself playing against kind of the same teams, depending what pot you get put into. So it's quite nice and refreshing to see a load of fixtures against different teams rather than just playing the same team over and over again. So it's quite good.
Yeah, definitely. Like the draw, I tried to watch the Europa League draw. It's just mental, isn't it? Like, why is there somebody pushing a button? What does that button actually do apart from just randomly generate teams? And what's the point in the balls? They just pick out like a name and then they just press a button and then all the other stuff's like, oh, it's madness.
It's crazy. Yeah. Absolutely crazy.
And then whoever that person is just has to go and push the button every...
That's what I'm saying. Ronaldo likes on a game show.
Anyway, that's just what it is, isn't it? Johnny said, it's interesting how the new Champions League and Europa League format, everyone is assured to play the biggest teams and the smallest teams in Europe. It's fairer, dare I say. So, yeah, that's fair enough. I don't even know who Arsenal got, Johnny. So if you want to let us know, I'd be interested to look, because I don't really have a look, see what's going on.
I know they've got PSG, I'm pretty sure. Is one team they definitely have, I'm sure. Yeah, PSG. But
I think Arsenal's fixtures are actually quite favourable. Like, I wouldn't, if I'm an Arsenal fan and I look at their fixtures, I would go, we should be getting out of, I wouldn't say the group, but we should be like relatively comfortable in terms of getting through to the next round. Put it that way.
Yeah, definitely. Right, let's talk about transfers now. I don't want to dwell too much on the transfer window as a whole, but I think it's important that we do discuss it because, one, I can't remember all the players that we got rid of because we literally just started just booting people out the door left, right, and centre. But I do want to talk about, obviously, the incomings. So if we kind of talk about that, and you can give me a out of tens if you want. I see a lot of people do that nonsense on Twitter, so I thought I might as well jump on the bandwagon. But yeah, we talk about incomings. Obviously, Big Dom came in. That was our kind of big signing. Then he got injured on day one. But we move, and we hopefully he'll be back. I believe they're probably resting him so he's fit for Arsenal after the international break. But we will see. Obviously, Archie Gray, Lucas Bergvall. Trying to think who else came in.
Odebear.
Yeah.
Hello, Wilson Odebear.
Yeah. That's
Korean lad as well.
Oh yeah, so he comes in January, doesn't he? Yang. But apart from that, we got rid of a lot of players who won a lot of money. When in the past, people always call me a Levy lover or whatever else you want to call it, right? But I see it as I see it. And whereas in the past we would have held on to these players for a long, long, long time, and we would have, tried to sell them for as much money as we could. We'd have lost out on deals because we were scratching every penny we could. And instead, they tear up contracts like Ndombele. They're getting rid of Giovanni Lo Celso on a really low deal. They're getting rid of Emerson Royale. That was probably the longest one that took time for a low fee as well. And it seems like Spurs are doing everything they can to give Ange the tools that he wants. And of course, those tools, help in terms of monetary spendings, right? Of course, his way of dealing and doing football, he isn't a checkbook manager. So you are going to see lower cost transfers. You are going to see, people just be let go and they don't need to be replaced because he only needs the people that you've got coming in. But, we've always talked about backing a manager. And Dave said it in our group earlier. He was like, well, how do you know that what he's saying is the truth? And I just replied and said, well, you can only take it on face value, right? You can only take it on what the man says. Like if the man says that he's happy, you have to turn around and believe him. But what were your thoughts, Winnie, on the transfer window as a whole?
Look, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh my God, we've had a fantastic window, but I'm also not going to sit here and say that it's been a terrible window, which is all I'm seeing on Twitter is that we've had a terrible window. How can it be a terrible window? As you say, we just got to go on face value. Ange, if they've asked Ange if he's been backed, essentially, and he said he has. These players that are coming in, like the Bergvall, the Archie Gray, people like that. Again, Odebear, like apparently, according to Ange, again, why would Ange lie? Odebear was someone who Ange or the club identified quite early and knew that that he was the man that they wanted to take that, that winger slot. And Okay, people will say, "Oh, yeah, but he obviously can't be." But I mean, he's came in, he started the first 2 games that he's been at the club. So I mean, there's obviously something. There's something behind it, and in my opinion, I think he was better the first game than he was today. But he's still very, very direct, and he's someone that we don't have. But look, if I had to rate it out of 10, I'm probably going to say it's got to be a 7, maybe.
Yeah, I'd say 7.
Ish. Because it's not just about the incomings, it's the outgoings as well. And one thing that we have struggled to do year upon year upon year is why we've been left with people at the club is we've just struggled to get rid of them for whatever reason, whether it's because we want too much money for them or whatever it is. But it looks as though something has changed because the amount of people we've got rid of this window is ridiculous. We've got rid of probably near enough like a starting 11 that some people, that some teams lower in the Premier League might be happy with. So we've got rid of some deadwood, which is what we needed. We've got some good youngsters coming through, like Mikey Moore. We've got obviously Devine made the bench today, Lancashire as well, and some other exciting youngsters like Bergvall, Archie Gray, Odebear, all these people. So look, it looks as though like Rome, when Rome wasn't built in a day. It's as simple as that. We've got to understand that it's going to take time for this to happen. And if Ange is prepared to stay with us through the process and see out his kind of project, then we should be commending him for that, because a lot of people and a lot of managers we've had in the past, the first sign of it going Charlie, they've gone, actually, do you know what? Fuck it, I don't fancy it. Don't fancy this anymore. Whereas Ange looks like the bloke who's happy to sit here and go, do you know what? I've committed to a project. They're buying youngsters that I can develop and I can see being, top Premier League players. So we've just got to trust him on that. So, for outgoings and ingoings, as a incomings as a window, I'm going to say 7.
Yeah. The thing is with him as well, like I don't think he likes losing, right? And I mean that in a certain way. Like he doesn't want to lose at this project. Like he wants to succeed, and so whether he sticks around, that's the big question, isn't it? Because if you look at his last few managerial positions, he's only ever been there probably 3 years. So that's the only worry for me, is that by doing this tactic, will we get to the point where he flourishes with this team? But I had a conversation with somebody on Twitter, and Ange doesn't spend 400 million, by the way, whoever wrote that comment. That's nonsense. But I was having a conversation with somebody, and I said, when you work in a job, do you only work hard so that you can succeed, but then when you leave, you know what I mean, it all falls apart? No. You work hard because you're proud of doing a job, and you work hard regardless of whether whoever takes over from you in the future succeeds or not. So I think that's important to look at. Okay, he's building a young squad that he wants, but also this is going to help Spurs in the future as well. Because whereas Odebear was one of the people that you pointed at as to say, that was a player that you specifically wanted, and then a few days later we go out and get him, but it does show that, he wants young players. He wants players that are going to fit his system, and he wants players that are going to work hard to achieve that. And that's all you can ask for.
Yeah, and it also shows that Ange watches our podcast, to be fair. I think for me, in terms of the transfer window, I still feel like we're just that one player short.
Yeah.
And it always feels like that with Tottenham. We always seem to be like that 1 or 2 players short to do something. But I like the direction that we are trying to go down, in the sense of we've tried for the win now managers, but the problem with the win now managers was they didn't have win now players. So it was absolutely pointless them being here. It's like me coming to you, Luke, and saying, "Oh, I want to buy £1 million house, but I don't have £1 million to spend on that house." Pointless. So I think the club then have decided to go, right, what direction do we actually want to go down? What strategy are we going to put in place? And I think, one of the things coming out of the Joan Langer interview that he did with the club was saying that we want to be the destination for top young talent. So there in your, we should now start to think about, okay, we want to be that place for top young talent. So that's realistically what we're going to work towards from a recruitment department and a recruitment perspective. We're going to look at players probably under the age of 25. I think there's probably only 2 players, I think, since Ange has sort of been at the club that have been over the age of 25, and that's Maddison and Vicario. And Vicario in goalkeeper terms was still quite young. He was 27 when we bought him. So, I don't think we're going to be going out and getting that finished article type player anymore. It feels like, okay, we want to have young players that we can, develop and have a young team that as fans, we hope that we can get behind and support for a good number of years. Like, you look at the age profile of the squad, it's come down dramatically from when Mourinho and Conte were there. So yeah, I think now we have a little bit more, especially in midfield, we've got a lot more legs in there. So I'm hoping that in the future, that, as you said, pointed out, Luke, it's like we're not buying players for now, we're buying players for the future. But I think we are just missing that little bit of sprinkling of the players that are sort of ready for now. Because I look at our first 11, and then I would argue that we've got a pretty decent first 11. Like, that could challenge and compete with majority of teams in the league. It's just underneath that now, it just feels like we're having to replace them with kids. And it's okay blooding a kid in every now and then, but you can't blood 4, 5, 6 of them in at one go. Especially now with the demands of, and what's at stake in each game in the Premier League, never mind, across the whole season. Because I think the demands now are probably bigger and greater than ever. So, I think we just need those players sort of in between. Like, if you're gonna, for example, take Maddison off, as much as I rate him, Lucas Bergvall, you're then bringing on an 18-year-old. Like, where's the sort of 20, 22, 23-year-old that's going to come in and challenge? Do you know what I mean? So, I just feel like we're a little bit short, especially defensively. Like, I know, obviously, we saw today no Van de Ven, but it's like, if your doggy's out, we're back to Ben Davis, who, no disrespect to Ben Davis, I think he's been brilliant for us over the years, but the drop in quality is quite dramatic, I'd say.
I do want to say, though, and I mean this with every respect I can to the player, but I don't think I've seen enough of Destiny, especially today, to warrant really like how good of a player he can be. Like, I watched him today quite closely, and I feel like he's always going to lack defensively because he's a bit more of attack-minded player, right? But even in attacking positions, was a couple of times. I mean, there was a lot of players that did it today, but touch just let him down. Like, being able to run on and collect the ball. But if you're going to play in that position, high up as an inverted, fullback, that's where your strengths have to lie.
Yeah, no, I think probably, I know we're probably going to go into it in a bit more detail anyway, but for me, like, that was probably your doggy's worst sort of all-round performance. And it's like, I think last season, he was a bit naive in the sense that he needed to just clatter into someone, almost get booked for him to then like calm down. But the thing is, then you've got a left back or a full back on a yellow card. And with the quality of some of the wingers in the Premier League, they're going to exploit that. And I think he was probably fortunate not to get sent off as much as he did last season. Because I think, if he goes into and he carries on that form from last season and brings it into large parts of this season, I think he'll get found out big time.
Yeah, but again, he is only young, and so he can definitely grow because players aren't a finished article. But there's quite a few of you in the chat right now, so make sure you are clicking the subscribe button if you're new, liking the video as well, because even your likes will help, and get your comments in because that will help push us out to more people. But talking about average ages, our average age is 25.3 today, which is just amazing, isn't it? Because ever since we lost Pochettino, we seem to then revert back to some kind of like desperado measure, which was like sign any old fucker that we could find and hope that they do something. And obviously that didn't work either. Johnny's upset though because he said, "Where was Van de Ven today? And why do you always only use Dragoshin in nearly impossible to win matches?" Johnny is Romanian, so therefore he's obviously a big fan of Radu. But I think the issue exists is that when a player gets injured, you have to bring someone in. You can't just go, "Oh, we'll play him against Everton," when you don't need to. But Van de Ven, we did miss him today desperately. And that's where I think sometimes you have to look at Ange and say, if the players that are in don't have the qualities, or not necessarily even being quality, but being, just fast enough to play that kind of system, like, it's just you have to look at it and say, okay, we'll drop off a yard because we can't carry on like we did today. But I felt like Dragoshin had a good game today. I felt like the tackle, and we'll go into the tackle he made against Isak when he was 1-on-1. I thought was outstanding. But let's talk about it and let's spend the rest of the show discussing the game because for those of you that live under a rock, obviously today we did lose 2-1 away at Newcastle. It's getting a tough old time, isn't it, facing Newcastle? They're like a proper bogey team for us. But we started okay, but then we got into the game, Wes, quite well. And then all of a sudden, it was one of those moments where, do you know when we conceded the first goal? In my head, for about 4 seconds, I was like, "Oh, that's a shame it's 1-1." Forgetting that we hadn't scored. Like we played that well that I, just kind of made up a story in my head that we'd already scored.
Wish we had. No, I think frustrating is probably the word to sum up the performance. I think you could argue it was like a rinse and repeat of the Leicester game. Dominated, the ball, probably battered Newcastle with the ball in that sense, but just weren't clinical enough in front of goal. Like how many times were crosses coming in and you just somebody bust the gut to get on the end of it. And yeah, I think from that point of view, just really, really frustrating because I think also Newcastle scored at really unfavorable times in terms of where the state of the game was at because we were dominant, no pressure, no danger, nothing really happening. All of a sudden, bang, bang, they've hit us. And I think if you look at the second goal in particular, it was really, really poor, all round. Maddison doesn't need to really fly in on Joel Linton there because Joel Linton's got nothing. Then all of a sudden, Joel Linton spins Maddison, and he's then got his head up. And then the back line don't drop; they kind of stay high and don't even narrow off either, which didn't help. So in that situation, you've got a drop, but you've also got a narrow off, and they did neither. I think it was Romero's caught square, and sod's law, the ball goes in between Romero and Udogie. Udogie doesn't tuck in and narrow off, which I think if he does, he probably gets a touch in on that and stops the ball going through. So yeah, that one was a really poor goal to concede. I wouldn't say that Basuma, after Joel Linton spun Maddison, I wouldn't then say for Basuma to fly out and try and close it down because, like I say, there was nothing really there. It was just the back four were just really disjointed. And that's why I think Joel Linton's played that pass and it's killed us.
Yeah, one of the big reasons as well why they were so disjointed was because if you watch it back, Romero runs to nearly the halfway line to close down the ball. And then when it gets played past him, he doesn't run back fast enough to get back. And then when you watch Harvey Barnes score, Romero just stands there and he's annoyed about it. But it's him that, if he comes back to that position, he's probably able to then deal with the ball.
But then with the Barnes goal, and it happens a lot, is a wide player in that situation, the back line just drops, and then it's right, we're going to defend the space. It's like we're defending spaces, not faces, where it should be the other way around. So then all of a sudden, all it just needs is a cutback, and then brilliant finish from Barnes. Really instinctive, but defensively, it wasn't great. Like I say, the back four have just decided to drop and retreat towards the goal, leaving that space, and Barnes has just found himself in there. Nice little finish, and Newcastle at that point then, obviously going in 1-0, and I think the crowd just started to get up in and around that point as well, which when you play at St James's Park, you have to keep that crowd quiet first 15-20 minutes. You have to, because that's when they start getting agitated, and then that's when the pressure then comes to the players, and then I think that's when as a team you would hope your quality shines through. But yeah, I think opening minutes we didn't sort of manage the game well, and then I think we gained a little bit of control. Newcastle scored, and then it was a bit like, where do we go from here?
Yeah, agreed. And then Winnie, at half time, obviously Ange made an attacking substitution, which fair play to him. It's one of those things that he had in the Everton game, because obviously he could see that the Everton whole game was there for the taking, but he then reverted back to his classic two midfielders, or as I would call more holding midfielders option. with Sarr and Basuma, but he decided to hook Sarr, which I thought was a little bit harsh because he'd had a couple of shots on goal. I didn't think he played badly at all, but obviously one of them had to go, and he probably preferred Basuma. And he brought on everyone's favourite, Brennan Johnson. And to be fair on Johnson, I thought he lived up to it today. I felt like he really, really gave it everything. And I felt that he, as I said before, he's a confidence player, and he seemed to do all right. But we started to get back into it, and then of course we scored. I think the whole goal was a bit of a disaster, wasn't it, from start to finish? To be honest, what Pope's doing, I don't know. What Brennan Johnson's doing, I don't know. And then what Dan Burn's doing, I have absolutely no idea, because he just can't be arsed then, just who's in his own goal. But what do you think of that kind of early substitution from Ange?
It's something that I think Ange gets criticised for at Tottenham Hotspur, and that is not making changes at the right time, almost reactive rather than proactive. I know you could still say it was reactive because obviously we're coming into the second half 1-0 down, but it was still kind of proactive rather than what he would have done previously, where and it's probably my only criticism of him is that Ange of old possibly still might have waited until the 60th minute to try and make an impactful change, whereas he's at half time he's going, do you know what, I need to do it now. So full credit to him for that. And what I will say about Brennan Johnson, I'm not going to go out there and say, oh my God, Brennan Johnson is fantastic, but he done everything right as a winger should do today, and that was kind of get into that space, beat the fullback, and put a ball across the 6-yard box. I can't tell you how many times he did that today. And as a winger, that is the area you want to get it in. A couple of times, I will say he probably should have got it in sooner, because there was a couple of times when Sonny peeled off to the back post. And Johnson, if he's a professional footballer, he's capable of bending that cross around the centre back to the back post. He's capable of doing that. So if he'd been a bit more instinctive and maybe done that quicker, but in terms of Johnson, I feel like he was fine. He did, like I say, what he was expected. And for me, it just makes me excited, if I'm honest, about having Solanke back, because I know for a fact a fit firing Solanke would have been on the end of at least 2 of those crosses, because that's his speciality. That's what he does. So look, I'm excited for it. But in terms of Ange's change, it was positive. It wasn't negative, and that's what we want to see. Do you know what I mean? Like, we don't mind. Obviously, we don't like going behind in games, but if we do, we want to see our manager go, actually, do you know what? Let's try and impact this positively and make a change that's going to do something positively for the team. And you could argue that's what it did, because I'm sure it'll go down as an own goal, but technically it's probably Brennan Johnson's goal, but he's obviously done something right.
Yeah, definitely. And it's nice to see a manager say, do you know what? It's half time. It's not going how I want. I'd rather go down on my sword. That's how I feel anyway, than
100%.
Limp out like we did in the Champions League against AC Milan. We needed the goal and Conte did nothing. Do you know what I mean? And that's like, from me, what I want to see. Like, I want to see a manager say, do you know what? We're going to go for it. Because I've always said this about Spurs. Regardless of the result, as long as we perform the best we can, then I can leave happy. Today wasn't the case though, Wes, for me, because I felt like, as I did tweet it actually, and I said, it's really lazy for people to blame the manager or blame the board. And I do agree with Dave, who was in the chat a couple of times, whereby they have to take some blame, and I get that. But today, for me, it was poor individual errors that led to us not winning that game. Because, okay, Brennan Johnson probably should curl the ball in earlier behind to Son, but then in the last minute of the game, Son's peeling off towards the back post. Brennan plays the ball in, and Son's not there because he's stopped to try and gain some space. So it was just poor individual. I could name 10 times where we made a poor decision today, Wes, in an attacking moment that lets down. Because after we scored, we were on top. We had chance after chance after chance, 3 versus 3. And to be fair, they set in a low block quite a lot in that game today. And so when we did manage to open them up and leave them man for man, we just couldn't make it happen.
Yeah, and it's really frustrating because as a coach, it's probably one of the only things that you get asked to work on a lot, but you can't really teach or coach it. And that is decision making. Like, the amount of times I've had people coming up to me going, "Oh, Wes, can you work on decision making?" And I'm there like, "No, I can't really," because there's no tangible kind of output with decision making. Like if I was to teach somebody how to play a pass, I know that their output, I know what it will look like because I can see it like visually.
Yeah.
I can see it. Whereas when it comes to decision making, it's very hard for you then to be able to go, yeah, right, we've worked on that. And, if you do this, this is the outcome of it. So it's always frustrating when players don't make obviously the right decisions. But like I say, it's very hard to coach. So you have to just rely on the players to kind of make better decisions on the ball and even off the ball as well. Like obviously you have to trust that they obviously are playing what they see and make the decision that they feel is right at that time. But yeah, it's like I say, really frustrating because like I say, there's nothing you can really like. There's no way they're going to come back. Say, or those that aren't involved with the internationals, there's no way they're going to come back and be like, right, today, lads, we're going to work on decision making and we're going to perfect this and we're going to make sure that it's all crisp and stuff like that. That's just a mind matter, really. So yeah, it can be frustrating because we get into some really, really good positions and it's just that final pass, that end product, or taking a shot when you should have passed, or vice versa, and all of those kind of things. So yeah, like I say, really, really frustrating because it absolutely kills us more often than not. And I think had we had better decision makers in the final third, not only today, but you would argue against Leicester as well, and even 100% last season, I think we would be obviously a completely different team. I think we would be potentially spoken about as challenging for at least third, I think, in the league. Like, the amount of chance we've had today, you're just thinking, well, how many goals would Harry Kane have in this team? Like, everybody was trying to say to me start of last season that we're a better team without Harry Kane. I went, no, put Harry Kane in this team and he would have had about 15 goals, in the first 10 games. The amount of chance we were creating was ridiculous. It'd have been doing up Haaland numbers. So, it's frustrating again in that sense because I think we've obviously been spoiled, especially top end of the pitch, with having Kane. And some of those sort of half chances today, if they're at Harry Kane's feet, it's minimum on target. He's making the goalkeeper work. So yeah, like I say, just really frustrating, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Like if you look at Son at one point where, he's running through and he's got Brennan Johnson to his right, and I think could have been Kulusevski or somebody to his left, right, or Odegaard. If that's Harry Kane, the perfect pass, the weight of pass is going to be on. And really, that was the difference because going into, to the latter stages of the game, a really simple ball, a very well played ball, a very simple ball, which we couldn't do, was played through and behind, and Isak has run. Murphy has run through. And then just, there was a classic sweaty FIFA goal that got scored. Wait till the keeper comes out, pass it across. And to be fair, don't gamble much, but I had a little shots on target bet for Isak. And that was nice. The only time when I was like, oh, he's got a shot on target. Oh, wait, he scored against us. So I won some money, but, not so good for anything else. But talking about FIFA, for those who are still interested and want to stay on after this show, Winnie and I will be live, just the two of us, to play some co-ops FIFA directly after this. So, the usual people that do tune in, Johnny J, all the rest of you, please do make sure you stay tuned, stay on the channel, and we will make sure that we entertain you with some FIFA action. But Winnie, because I know you've got to go in a minute, get set up for it. So we'll kind of talk about score predictions if you want, because
if you want, if we have to,
face of yours wants to discuss it. So, for those of you that obviously don't know or have never tuned in before, every week we predict the scores for the upcoming Spurs games, and we keep track in a lovely table. Now, last week, Wes was top with 3 points. The rest of us all had 1 point. Now, last week, these were the scores we predicted. I predicted 2-0 Spurs win. Winnie 2-1 Newcastle win. Dave 2-1 Spurs win. Callum 3-1 and Wes 2-2. Now, obviously, I don't like losing, but I definitely didn't want Wes to get another 3 points. So I was kind of glad that the score stayed as it was because Winnie ended up with a 3 point and the rest of us 0 points. So actually, what that means is that Winnie now takes the lead with 4 points, Wes with 3, me with 1, Dave with 1, and Callum with 1. So a lot of catching up for me and the other lads to do. Now, Winnie, how do you feel? Spurs lost, but you won.
Look, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna do it properly. Do you know what I mean? I don't go into things half-hearted. So look, look, me saying that, I predict Newcastle to win, it doesn't mean Spurs are going to lose. It's just my prediction. So I'm not, I'm not sending all this negative energy to Spurs. For me, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I just see St James's Park now as an L. I even, for whatever reason, there's some kind of hoodoo there, and we just, for whatever reason, just kind of crumble and give away silly games, silly goals and stuff like that. So look, I'm happy that I'm top of the table. I'm sad that it's unfortunately come to the expense of Tottenham Hotspur. But look, there's going to be more. Let's just put it that way. If we're going to Anfield, for example, no matter what kind of form Tottenham Hotspur are in, I'm not going to put us to win. It's just one of them fixtures. It's simple as that. I'm just not.
Well, I am. So
well, more for you, mate. More for you.
See if ethics trumps just being an absolute rat bag like you. Evening to a few people that have joined us. So Hotspur Hood, you do talk a lot of waffle, but you're helping our ratings, so thanks for that. Donna, another person that talks waffle, but thank you for joining in.
Where's David Clark? Where's Clarky? Where's
Clarky?
I know, yeah.
To be fair, somehow we do, we do attract some weirdos, but we appreciate you all because we're all weirdos deep down. Anyway, Winnie, I'll let you go so you can get set up for the FIFA session that we're going to do. But tell everybody how they can locate you.
Winnie1991 on Twitter. Here every Sunday, hopefully 7 p.m. And then also straight after on the FIFA, normally clubs, but it's just going to be me and Luke today. So you can catch us there as well. And I am making an appearance on Holly's show tomorrow as well. So if you like what I have to say, then check me out there. But obviously you should be checking out Holly's show anyway because it's incredible. But yeah, there.
Perfect. Love that, mate. Well, I will see you soon. And,
cool.
Thank you.
Nice one. See you in a bit.
Bye.
See you later.
Right. Now, just me and you, Wesley, to discuss the latter stages. Right. I don't know what to say to this. We keep getting asked to come onto their show and debate them. Now, I don't need to debate anybody or give my time to anyone, to be quite honest. And it is what it is. Like, everybody has their own opinion. I respect the fact that you hate Ange Postecoglou and would rather see our club burn than, succeed. And that's absolutely fine. But I don't need to, express my opinion on YouTube. But Dave will. Dave will go on, no problem at all. So Dave loves an argument. So, yeah, that's fair enough.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. He even said he loves an argument. Right. Anyway, a couple of things I want to talk about, though, quickly is obviously today did not go well.
Mm-hmm.
But, we're 3 games into a Premier League season. It's a long season. And, today's result doesn't determine that. Now, there are a few things with Ange that I feel like, whilst he doesn't have all the tools that he needs, I feel like there has to be some adjustments to account for those types of things. My only concern is the fact that he won't do that. Now, and I'm asking you this, in the nicest way, do you think that will become a problem for him at any point? Or do you think that that's just how you become the league coach?
It depends is the answer that I'm going to give. It depends, especially for a club like Tottenham, where we are almost renowned for having this certain style of play. But we've gone for the managers that have the substance, but not the style. So it's the style v substance. Do we, for example, part ways with Ange, because he's too stubborn, only got one way of playing, blah, 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 same as Pep, Klopp, Arne Slot, the lot. They all have one way of playing and they make it better. But anyway, do we sack that off and go for a substance manager who's got all the pots on the table and it's going to be crap and it's going to be boring to watch and it's going to be an absolute chore? Or do we actually show a little bit of bottle and go, do you know what? Let's ride out the tough times because we feel that this man is going to get us the success that we want and need. In a similar way to what we did with Pochettino, because as we all know, his start to his reign wasn't the greatest. And, you know, there was rumours that he was out of the door quite early on. And we all know what happened then. We gave him time to kind of build the team that he wanted and, you know, probably gave every Spurs fan, you know, especially in recent history, the best moment of their life. You know, in a similar way to what Arsenal have done with Arteta, like Arsenal finished 8th twice under Arteta. He's still their manager. Like they've ridden out the bad times with him, and now all of a sudden they're being spoken about as this real elite team and, you know, title contenders and challengers to City and all of this. You know, Pep's first year at City was atrocious. Like it was horrible, but City stuck with it because they knew what was coming. So we have this real interesting time now. I don't personally think that we should be sacking Ange Postecoglou. And somebody even asked me today, like, how long does he have? And I just turned around and said, he's got as long as he wants, really. Yeah. In my eyes, he's got as long as he wants, really. And I think, you know, it could be a hell of a lot worse. We could be Man United in the sense that Ten Hag has spent nearly $1 billion, yet you have no idea what Man United are going to turn up each week. They've got no identity, no structure on and off the ball. They've got no patterns. Liverpool murdered them today. And that's Arne Slot's 3rd game in charge of Liverpool Football Club, coming off the back of replacing Jurgen Klopp in one of the biggest fixtures in English football and in world football. Yeah. And they've absolutely destroyed Man United in United's own backyard. And I actually quite like Arne Slot. I'm now going, okay, I can see why we potentially were heavily linked with him, because obviously I didn't know too much about him, but the way he conducts himself, really calm, the way he talks, really detailed as well. So I think Liverpool are going to do all right under Arnie, I have to say. But from a Spurs point of view, I think we just need to stick with it. There are going to be a lot of bumps in the road, but, you know, name me a road pretty much that doesn't have bumps in it. Even the motorways in this country have got a load of bumps in them because the roads are shite. So, you know, stick with it. And yeah, I think we will be, I think there's going to be games where, a bit like today, where we play well, but we don't get the result. So it's like, well, at least we've played well. We can see something. Like in previous years, it was, well, we've lost, but we've also played really bad. And that was just
we've lived to watch as well.
Yeah. And there was just like nothing. So I'd much rather us kind of play well and lose than play shit and win, if that makes sense. And I don't mean that in like and I know people are probably going to dig me out for it, but you know, when you go to games in particular, like you want to be entertained, you want to see, you know, you want to see some good football, because if not, it's just like, oh, this is boring. Like you just start thinking about all the other crap things you could have been able to do, like within that 90-minute or 2-hour period. So yeah, I like what Ange's trying to do with the team and the squad. I just think it's going to take a little bit more time. Just trust it. And I think, I'm hoping anyway, that it will come good eventually, but it's not going to happen overnight. As when he said earlier, Rome wasn't built in a day. Not that we were all on that job, but you know, it's not going to happen overnight. You know, like I say, it took Pep a year. Or you know, in his 2nd season, he started getting success. Klopp, it took a little while for him to get the fruits of his labour. Even Fergie at United, I think it was like 3 years before he even did anything of note. So yeah, just kind of stick with it, and I think we will be all right.
Yeah, 100%. It took Gareth Bale a long time to, you know, turn into the player that he was. So
there we go. You know. It took a load of time for people to realise that Moussa Dembele is the greatest of all time. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it's going to take time, and I think as Spurs fans, you know, we love our attacking football. We want to be on the front foot. We've got that style now. There's just little tweaks and changes that need to be made, and they will be made over time. Because I think, like, now, you look at the set pieces, nobody's really talking about it. So it's obviously something that has been addressed. Like, and you look at the way we were taking set pieces today, in particular, a couple of short corners, little bits being worked off the training ground. So there's definitely bits that have been highlighted that have needed to be addressed, and I think they are slowly but surely getting addressed.
Yeah, definitely. There was one today where Sonny made the run in and then first time pass to the edge of the box, and it was then blocked and blocked and then blocked again. But I mean, just that little bit of intricacy that you see, is nice to see. But also, just to play kind of like another part of this, there's another reason why he's never going to be in trouble for a long time, in my opinion, and that's because his model suits exactly what the club want as well. So, rather than where you had managers who would speak out about the club, where you had them only wanting certain players based on prices and high wages and other things like this, like the way of thinking in terms of getting in young talent that doesn't cost a huge amount of money suits the club's financial mentality as well. So no matter whether you dislike the board or not, Ange Postecoglou is a perfect manager for them. It just so happens that he plays really nice football as well. And so I think it would take a lot for him to, be under pressure. And as you say, it would be absolutely ridiculous based on what's happened in the past, where we finally have a manager coming in that's playing attractive attacking football, to start talking about people being under pressure. I've seen people say he'll be gone by Christmas. He won't be. Not even next Christmas. And you're just going to have to get used to it. But Dave said here, because Dave is very passionate about it, but he did talk about Ange with me back in last season. He said, back Ange, I'm all in, but he does need to adapt tactically, just like Poch. But I think deep down, even Ange knows that. Like today, he mentioned earlier, like today, when you have Dragoshin, as we said earlier, instead of Van der Ven, there's maybe some sort of tweak you have to do to realize that if the ball's going behind, they're never going to be able to catch up. Because that's the thing, isn't it, with Van der Ven? When you've got him in, you can allow a striker a couple of yards because he's going to catch up. But anyway,
but even then, I don't think Dragoshin was like. There was times when they're getting in behind Newcastle, and I think obviously tactically, one ball should never really do a team. Like that's like even, and I'm not even saying that just for Tottenham in the Premier League. Like I'm even saying that as like under 9s, under 10 stuff. Do you know what I mean? But I never felt like, and I know a lot of people were nervous about Dragoshin even coming into the team, but they clearly hadn't watched him at the Euros, because he was like probably one of the better centre backs out there at Euro 2024. He was arguably Romania's best player as well. So I wasn't really nervous, and I think actually there was times where Newcastle were trying to get in behind, and Dragoshin actually, not only kept up with them, but made a good tackle. And you look at that tackle he made on Isak as well. And my dad even likened that one to Ledley King's tackle on Iron Robin all of those years ago. So yeah, I think there are some tweaks that might need to happen, but it will be tweaks to plan A from Ange. It's not going to be a plan B, plan C, etc., because it's all about making plan A better.
Yeah, definitely. He said the problem is switching off, losing concentration. Our defense do it frequently. Well, that's it happens all over. It happened today again, all over the pitch. The way that this works, where the centre back split and the ball's played quickly to the midfielder, and they then have to distribute that quickly again, because then that draws in the opposition midfield, and then that creates more space for the attackers. Is the kind of novice way of looking at it. But from what I've been doing from studying Ange's football, that's obviously how you then break that kind of press. Is that you have to be switched on for that, because as soon as you make a bad pass, you're fucked then, because you've drawn the opposition into you, and then you've made a pass that's given the ball to them, and then you're under the cosh. And so, that's where, again, like, you have to look at the players sometimes and say, maybe they aren't good enough, certain players, or maybe they're just, still warming up to playing this. The thing for me is that if you look at, as you say, Arne Slot, in terms of that, like, fullbacks coming inside and things like that, something that he also does, and you can see Liverpool are already, like, spot on with it. The only difference I can see with Slot is that a lot of the time he leaves Mo Salah quite high on the wing, and then when they get the ball, they just fucking lump it, and he's like running through. I saw it a couple of times in the first game that they played, but then also in the second game that they played, whereby, and in a pre-season game as well, actually, where I think it's from a defensive corner, and then they get the ball, and it's a quick 1-2, and then they just kind of lump it on to Mo Salah to run in behind. And, fair play to them. It definitely works. But
and then if you look at all three of Liverpool's goals today, transitions, they broke quickly, but it was, and we spoke earlier about that decision making, it was giving the ball to the right player at the right time. Yeah. And I think even Gary Neville highlighted it. It was like, if whose passes would have gone to Núñez or Gakpo, who are a little bit more rash in their decision making, Liverpool probably don't score. But they go to Mo Salah, who's pretty bob on every time, and who makes those right decisions at the right time. Like, you look at the first goal, the cross to the back post, unbelievable, and he's doing that off his swinger. The pass into Diaz was fantastic as well. But then you look at it from a United point of view, and you spoke there, Luke, about the transition. What on earth United are doing, I've got no idea, because they're not even in what we would class as safe possession, where you're building up with 5-6 passes. That's what you would usually class as your safe possession. So then your fullbacks can really go. It's like a couple of passes, all of a sudden the fullbacks are just gone. And it's like, well, hold on a minute. Like you say, one pass that goes a bit astray, you're knackered. So, and I think that's obviously what hurt United today, like big time. And I think that's where United's downfall is going to be. It's not so much Casemiro as a whole, it's what's around him. Because the first goal for Liverpool today, he had no options to play, and he tried to play first time. Granted, decision making poor, but he had nothing. So, like, what do you really want him to do? Just twat the ball somewhere and hope. But then, like we say, transition, Liverpool turn over the ball, and a really, really good finish. But I think that there's similarities, I think, from the United point of view to Spurs as well, in the sense of we do leave ourselves really open at the back, and then it's about, okay, your ability to defend in 1v1 sort of situations. And then I think last year in particular, even the Newcastle game, it was like, right, smash it, isolate Van der Ven, sweaty it, bang. And I think that's where a couple of the Newcastle goals even came from last year. So that's a bit disappointing, but I'm hoping that we can again sort of fix that and tweak that as the team goes on this journey with Ange.
Yeah, 100%, mate. And that's a good place to kind of wrap up. We will be back next week, even though it's international break, because we'll have a big game to talk about, and that's the North London derby. So we'll have a whole show previewing the North London derby before it happens. And so please do stay tuned in. Obviously, tune in on Wednesday night at 9 p.m. because the FPL show will be back. The Fat Pod lads will be here, and they've got enough of them to nearly start a full 11, I think, in that show. But keep tuning in to us, because me and Winnie will be live in about 5 minutes. As soon as I jump off this, we'll be on and play some FIFA, and also come back obviously next week 7 p.m. to tune in to the podcast. But Wesley.
Yeah, there we go.
Every week I do this, man. How can everyone find you?
Twitter's at Wezo10, unofficial East Dembele fan account, as everybody knows by now. Usually tweeting things about the best Belgian, and I believe, Luke, on this momentous day in 2012, he scored his first goal for Spurs against Norwich. So really happy about that. Instagram's at Wezo32. Will more than likely be at majority of Spurs home games this year. Would love to do some aways, but it's a bit trickier for me this year to be able to do. I'm for all the coaching stuff, Kickoff Football Academy code for MK across all your socials, including YouTube as well. Hoping to get some bits done for that this year, trying to push that as much as possible. And then football content, WM32 Football on TikTok and YouTube and Instagram as well. Just doing my bit for my love of football, really. And I'm also on Holly's Hotspur Huddle on a Wednesday, where things get a little bit more technical and tactical. And we also discuss FPL on there as well, but it's before the Fat Pod lads, so you can watch us beforehand, then watch the Fat Pod lads afterwards, because that's how it's got to be done.
Amazing. No, it looks like we're taking over Holly's show, so make sure everyone heads over there and shares their love as well. Right, that kind of draws us to an end. You can follow me if you want, Luke_Park Lane. But more importantly, make sure you're checking out our podcast. Make sure you're liking, you're subscribing. There's quite a few of you in the chat today, so I really, really appreciate everybody. Those on Facebook as well. We love the Facebookers, so thank you very much for that. Big up to Facebook. And nobody on Twitch today, not many on Twitch. So, you need to step up your game. But make sure you're liking and subscribing. Make sure you are following us on all platforms on social media. And we will check you out next Sunday at 7 p.m. But until then, a massive come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.